When I crossed the US border to get to Canada, I didn't know what life had in store for me. Like so many refugees and immigrants, I knew there was a long journey ahead of me. An adventurous one, a tough one, a painful one, a lonely one, and a beautiful and unique one. However, I didn't know it was going to make me want to die at times and regret the decisions I made for myself, for my family, and for the next generations after me. I didn't know I was going to suffer financially. I didn't know I would cry myself to sleep, or I would cry myself in the shower and bang my head against the wall, hoping for someone to come and hug me and tell me that everything is going to be okay. I often wish I didn't have to grow up this fast. I wish I could just be a normal teenager, enjoy hanging out with my friends after school. I just wish it was easy. But this journey is teaching me lessons I otherwise wouldn't have been able to learn. It's teaching me to be strong, to be authentic, not to take the opportunities that I have been given for granted, to love, to respect, to take care of people that mean to me, and to strengthen my relationships. I'm sharing my story to be empowered, to be respected, and to be heard. I'm sharing my story because we often forget about vulnerable people. I'm sharing it because I'm not ashamed of who I am. For as long as I can remember, I was ashamed of my story. I was ashamed of my identity. I was ashamed of the decision I made. I thought I had ruined the dreams of people that were counting on me. I was trying so hard to hide everything about me. But in August, something beautiful happened, and I had the opportunity to go to Cassidy's and Jess's retreat. I met a group of strong women that changed my life. They taught me to be strong and to let my voice be heard. And this is my journey of becoming the person that I am today and how I got here. I was born and raised in Afghanistan in a pretty big family. I was lucky enough to go to school, although it didn't come easy, as my parents had to move from the village they were raised in and had memories from to Kabul, the capital city of Afghanistan, when I was 5 years old, so that I had the opportunity to get an education. My mom has never been to school, and my dad just finished grade 4 when his school was burned down by the terrorists, and he never had the opportunity to go back and continue school. So for them, it was really important to make sure that I and my siblings were going to get an education. In grade 7, I went to Turkey for 1 month through an English and cultural exchange program, and that experience gave me the confidence to look for a study abroad program. In 2016, I heard about a summer program for high school students at Yale University in the States. I still remember how stressed and excited I was as I was waiting to get my visa. June 2016 came over and I moved to the States, traveling alone by myself for the first time. I first landed in Istanbul and had a layover for about 22 hours. I didn't move from the waiting area until they announced the gate's number, as I was really scared. I took my backpack and was running toward the gate, scared of missing my flight and not knowing what to do if I did miss it. I had to go down the escalators to get to the gate, and you know how there is one for going up and one for going down? Standing all proud and happy that I made it to the gate, I got on the upside of the escalator and I started to walk downwards. A few seconds passed by and I was wondering why I couldn't get down the escalator. I saw people smiling and laughing at me from the other side of the escalator. I realized I was walking on the wrong side of the escalator. My pride was hurt. Anyways, I got to the States, and initially after the program, I was planning to go back home. But at that time, based on my situation, the best option for me was to stay and apply for asylum in the States. After the program, I moved in with my uncle who was living in Chicago. I was going to school there as I was waiting for my immigration application to be accepted by the US government. But after 14 months, I didn't hear anything from the immigration office in the States. And I also didn't have a job and my uncle was supporting me financially at that time. But it was getting really hard for him as well, because he was working really hard to support his family back home and also support me. I talked to my parents and told them that I wanted to move to Canada. They agreed because they knew I was not in a good place financially and emotionally. Everything happened real quick, just in 2 weeks. I contacted someone who came to Canada through the border from the States, and I asked her how she got here. I also want to say I can't give too much information about the smuggler and his hotel, as I don't want him to get shut down for what he does. I googled the smuggler's information, I found his phone number and I called him. I asked if he could help me cross the border. He asked about the day, the time of my arrival, and where did I want to get picked up from. So I trained from Chicago to Seattle for 3 days because my status had expired and I didn't want to risk taking the plane. When I got to Seattle, he picked me up from the train station and drove me to his house. There was one other guy at the front seat of his car and wanting to cross the border too. The smuggler took the money for helping me cross the border and asked about my nationality. After I responded to him, the guy from the front seat turned back with a smiling face. He said he was Afghan too, and he had worked for the government back home. He got to the States. He also said he got to the States through a work visa and now he didn't want to go back home. What stuck to my mind from what he said was, look at where life has gotten us. When we got to his house, it was around 6 p.m. in the evening. He showed us our rooms and that was the last time I saw the Afghan guy. After 30 minutes, he took me to a room that he called his office. There was a big black table with the world maps and a lot of papers lying around. He printed a map for me with directions on how to get out of the house and cross the border. His office was facing the Canadian border, and he told me that once I'm out of the house, I just need to walk for 5 minutes towards the right side of his house, and when I get by the trees, I just need to walk downhill for about 30 minutes until I get to the gas station. At the gas station, I can ask them to call a taxi for me. I waited for the sun to go down that day. I took my backpack, which I had my documents in, and walked out of the house. I walked according to the directions the smuggler gave me, and as I was walking down the hill, I saw a couple of cars passing by. I suddenly dropped my phone and went down to pick up my phone. I saw a car coming from behind, and my guts were telling me I was getting caught by the police. Regardless, I kept walking. The car pulled up in front of me, and the officer started talking to me in Spanish, thinking that I was Spanish. I told him I don't understand what he is saying, and he asked me in English if I know where I am and what am I doing on the border. In response, I told him that I don't know where I am. I was staying in a hotel and decided to go out for a walk. He said, "You're in Canada, do you know that?" And with a surprised face, pretending that I don't know, I said, "Really?" He called another officer and was talking to him about me and how I lost my way while walking. At that moment, I realized that it's the Canadian police, not the American, and I'm safe to tell him the truth. I cut his sentence and confessed that I know where I am and that I want to seek an asylum in Canada. He hung up and asked for my documents and the bag I had with me. Within the span of 5 minutes, 3 more police cars came, and there were about a total of 10 officers, 2 of them females. The female officers checked me to make sure that I don't have anything dangerous or illegal with me. After checking, one of the new officers took me to his car, and I waited in his car for about 3 hours, as it was Saturday and all the government offices were closed. After about 3 hours of staying in his car, he transferred me to a big white van, and I was being taken to the airport where the immigration office is located. At the immigration office, they told me that at the immigration office I'll be questioned, and if my case is not found eligible or valid, they will send me back. However, they didn't mention if they were going to send me back to the US or to Afghanistan. We got to the airport, but they said the office is closed and that they should take me to the one in downtown Vancouver on 350 West Georgia Street by the public library. I finally ended up in 300 West Georgia Street at 12 a.m. The officers took me to a room where 2 other officers were waiting to ask me questions. He asked me questions about how I crossed the border, how I found the smuggler's contact information, and how came my parents let me do it by myself. After the interview, the officers said that they were going to find a safe house for me to stay at, and because I was underage, they wouldn't allow me to stay on my own. However, because it was the weekend, they were not able to contact the Ministry of Children, so they booked a room for me in the 2400 motel where I stayed until Tuesday of that week. After 2 days of staying in the motel, I was contacted by a social worker who found a safe house for me somewhere in East Vancouver. I stayed at the safe house for about 3 weeks while going to the immigration office almost every day and proving myself over and over again to so many government officials, although they knew my situation and my story. The immigration process was long and stressful. I was only 17 and didn't know how to cope with all the changes. After staying at the safe house for 3 weeks, my social worker placed me in a semi-independent house where I had to do almost everything on my own, from cooking to doing the laundry to making my own appointments. After my 18th birthday, I moved out on my own completely and have been living independently since then. These past 4 years has been challenging yet sweet and beautiful, and I'm excited for more adventures to come and grow along people that are uplifting and grow by helping each other grow. I'm in school right now, but in the near future, I'm planning to do my yoga teacher training and become a yoga instructor. Because during the hardest times of my life, yoga helped me connect with myself, overcome anxiety, and embrace life. It reminded me I'm courage in the face of fear, triumph in the face of adversity, and strength in the face of pain. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of you for holding this space for me and listening to my story. And I also want to thank you, my soul family, for holding space for me, and I don't think I would have been able to share my story today if it wasn't because of them, if they didn't give me the courage to share my story. Thank you so much.